Welcome to Sharika Talks, Unraveling the Truth, a journalist's quest. Subscribe for the truth.
Chapter 54, Aham Bhramasmi Tat, thwam. So let me get this straight. Sukanya stared at him, her eyes so wide the whites showed all the way around. So you are saying that you broke into the most heavily guarded temple in the state. You almost got caught. You escaped in broad daylight, and you essentially hacked and canceled an entire train to do it? Sachin nodded silently. He took a slow sip from his glass of Jawan rum. They were sitting on the balcony of Sukanya's new house. It had been just a week since the D-Wig school games ended in a massive success, but to Sachin, that felt like a lifetime ago. The evening air was cool, with the setting sun painting the horizon with bright orange colors. His right hand rested on his knee, still bandaged where the spring-loaded blade had nearly severed his palm. I also broke the final lock in that door using my gun. I admit I carefully erased all the evidence, including the bullet shell, but I left my empty canisters of the rebreather in the black hole of the Amaijanchan Canal. A feeling of disgust and uneasiness flashed on his face when he recalled it. He continued, I also vaguely remember helping a small girl in the train who was about to get murdered by a thief. Sukanya looked at him in disbelief. Then she picked up her glass. She emptied the entire glass of honey wine Sachin had brewed the previous year for her. Then she poured another glass of the amber liquid and drank more than half of it in a single gulp. She took a deep, shuddering breath. Why are you doing all this, Sachu? Sachin looked at the Jawan rum in his glass. I know it's hard for an average believer like you to comprehend that the gods were once mortal humans. I thought the concrete proof I found could shatter an entire religion into pieces. But standing there, reading about their wars, their culture, the scientific advancements they achieved, it was worth everything. He paused, his gaze drifting to the distant horizon. I still don't know, he whispered. Know what? That heartbeat I felt when I almost touched the mound. I still don't know if it was my own elevated pulse or if Agastya is still alive down there, meditating in a chemically induced hibernation. But at that moment, standing in the presence of such a man, alive or dead, I went completely blank. Sukanya started to say something but remained silent. If they mastered biology to that extent, Sachin continued, his mind racing back to the Himalayas, how can we not assume that the first Shiva is still alive in Mount Kailash? Guarded by the Aghoris in a state of deep hibernation? Sukanya sat in absolute silence, the weight of the universe seemingly pressing down on her balcony. Sachu, if what you are saying is true, she stammered, its implications, they go far beyond religion, history, and archaeology. Medicine, agriculture. Sachin nodded slowly. But I have to decode all the texts, Sachin said, leaning forward, the pragmatist in him taking over. I need to know more about their civilization. The Padmanabhaswamy Temple may not be the only place that hides secrets like this. Wait, you want to break into other temples too? No, not the way I just did. Sachin chuckled, shaking his head. I don't have the energy or the courage for that kind of madness again. We don't have to break in. We already have deep excavations, and we already have a signed contract with the government to open an archaeological park at Puranachila at the possible remnants of the Mahabharata era. We can use that access to approach other temples and sites. Maybe we'll find something. Sukanya exhaled. But what puzzles me is who that man in the white shirt you saw was. What organization was he talking about? What was he doing in the corridor of the Padmanabhaswamy Temple at 3 a.m.? Sachin's expression darkened. That is the most confusing thing. Who are they? We don't have a clue what organization they belong to, or if they possess any knowledge about this buried treasure. But I'm sure they were doing something that shouldn't be known to the outer world. I need to be careful. He took another sip of rum. I also need a stronghold, A place to store these findings and whatever else I might find in the future. It needs to be somewhere absolutely safe. Sukanya's face remained a mask of sheer puzzlement. Let's ask the Indian government for a massive tract of desert, Sachin said, his eyes lighting up with the vision. We build a private city in the middle of nowhere, kind of like a Disneyland, but for our research. Total isolation. Full control. Are you mad? Sukanya finally snapped out of her stupor. What can be done in the middle of a barren desert? Sachin smiled. He looked at the CEO of his empire and said two words that he knew would rewrite the way she thinks. Terra preta. She stared at him in silence. She started to understand the implications she herself had talked about a few minutes ago. Every normal, logical way of thinking was going to become primitive. Sachin smiled, watching the change of expression on her face. You're going to build an oasis from scratch, Sukanya whispered, her business acumen suddenly colliding with ancient mythology. Worth a try, right? Sachin shrugged. He leaned forward slightly. Chugru, don't just look at this as my intellectual curiosity. Look at the financial implications, too. I want to know the truth, yes, but it's not just that. It's for the greater good of the world. Imagine how all this will change our company. How will it change the world? She remained silent, staring at him. He looked back at the horizon, his jaw setting into a hard line. I will find the real truth about what happened to that civilization of gods. And when I finally uncover the whole truth, I will reveal it to the world. I will proclaim that the gods are not myths. They were just humans. Or in other words, we are gods. He paused, looking back at Sukanya right in the eyes, just as the ancient Upanishad said before the meaning was diluted by priests. Aham Bhramasmi Tat thwam. I am God. So are you. He took a long sip from his glass before continuing. I will attempt Kailash again as the final step, but this time I will be prepared. I'll speak their language. I'll use their techniques. For that, I need to decode everything, learn their language, find more sites. At that exact moment, the sliding glass door rattled open. Kingini, Sukanya's young daughter, having just woken from her nap, came running out onto the balcony, rubbing her eyes. The heavy, apocalyptic tension in the air shattered instantly. Sachin's hard face softened into a warm, genuine smile. He had always been fond of the little girl. Sukanya watched him starting to play with her daughter like a small child, her mind churning like a hurricane. Quietly, she turned off the camera that had been recording their entire conversation. She knew she would have to listen to this conversation at least 10 more times to fully grasp what her best friend was about to unleash upon the world. End of chapter 54.
Thank you for watching Unraveling the Truth, A Journalist's Quest. Subscribe to stay updated on Sharika's journey. Stay tuned for the next part.